Hello, this is Betsy Bois, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Thursday, July 9th issue of the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Driver pleads guilty in bus crash. 5 sightseers killed, dozens hurt on Thruway by Victoria E. Friel, New York Connect Team, USA Today Network. The bus driver involved in the deadly tour bus crash on the New York State Thruway last summer has pleaded guilty in Genesee County Court. Ben Shao, spelled S-H-A-O, 56, of Flushing, pleaded guilty Monday to 5 counts of criminally negligent homicide, a felony, in connection with the August 22, 2025 crash that killed 5 passengers and injured dozens of others, according to the Genesee County District Attorney's Office. Shao was originally charged with 5 counts each of criminally negligent homicide and second-degree manslaughter. Each count corresponded to one of the 5 people killed in the crash. The crash happened August 22nd of 2025 when a tour bus operated by Staten Island-based M&Y Tours was returning to New York City after a sightseeing trip to Niagara Falls. New York State Police said the bus veered off the roadway in the town of Pembroke, Genesee County, and rolled over multiple times. There were 54 people aboard, 52 passengers, and 2 tour company employees. The victims were Shankar Kumar Jha, 65, of Madhubani, India; Pinky Shangrani, 60, of East Brunswick, New Jersey; Zai Hangzhu, 22, of Beijing, China, a Columbia University student; and Zhang Zhailalian, I'm sorry for my pronunciation, 55, and Jian Mingli, 56, both of Jersey City, New Jersey. State police said Shao became distracted moments before the crash. Investigators determined he lost control of the bus and overcorrected, causing it to leave the roadway and overturn. Police also said many passengers were not wearing seat belts, and several were ejected when the bus rolled over. After the crash, Shao told investigators that a water bottle became stuck beneath the brake pedal as he attempted to slow for traffic. According to his deposition, Shao said he reached down to remove the bottle and swerved to avoid another vehicle. The bus then left the roadway and overturned several times. Quote, "I believe this was caused based on the water bottle preventing me from stopping," unquote, the deposition states. Shao was scheduled to be sentenced September 9th. According to the Genesee County District Attorney's Office, he faces between 15 months and 4 years in state prison. Wild berries bringing life to 200-year-old burial ground. Harvest from Rapids Cemetery helps to feed the area's needy. By Kayla Kane, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, USA Today Network. No one quite knows when or how dozens of wild black raspberry bushes took hold of the northern border of a Rochester cemetery nearly as old as America itself. Rapids Cemetery in the 19th Ward was first laid out around 1810 for the settlement of Castletown, the location of a major disembarkation point on the Genesee River. It became the final resting place for dozens of local Revolutionary War of 1812, and Civil War veterans, alongside early settlers who likely died of dysentery or Genesee fever and complications from childbirth. Then the cemetery was buried too, swallowed by vegetation and neglect after private owners moved away or died in the early 1900s. The land grew wild for over 100 years. When a group of veterans, city officials, and volunteers from the 19th Ward Community Association came together in 2015 to uncover the hidden graves, they found downed trees had given way to new life. A plot of black raspberry bushes had emerged at some point in the last century. There was fruit amid the chaos. The berries ripen yearly around Independence Day, and they have offered a new tradition on a historic corner of Rochester. On a quiet, drizzly July 4th morning, 19th Ward Community Association members John Curran and Mary Daniel Cooper scanned the thorny bushes for clusters of dark purple fruit. They swatted at mosquitoes woken by their foraging and plucked berries into quart-sized bags until their fingers were stained red. Each year we've been working to reclaim the area here, Curran said. It had been neglected for so long. The fruit will be frozen and used for smoothies or berry toppings at the nearby St. Peter's Kitchen, which feeds Rochester's hungry 6 days a week. The article includes reporting by Democrat and Chronicle reporters Justin Murphy and Tina McIntyre-Yee. Kayla Kane covers community safety for the Democrat and Chronicle with a focus on immigration, police accountability, government surveillance, and how people are impacted by violence. Follow her on Instagram at @ByKaylaKane or get in touch at kkane@gannett.com. Stritto, or maybe Stritto, spelled Stritto, named new head of Finger Lakes Tourism Agency by Mike Murphy, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, USA Today Network. The Finger Lakes Convention Connection. The Finger Lakes Visitors Connection will have a new leader, its second in a little over a year. Tracy Dello Stritto, spelled Stritto, will serve as the Ontario County Tourism Promotion Agency's next president and CEO effective August 3rd. Dello Stritto, who has served as president and CEO of the Ontario County Chamber of Commerce since 2023, will succeed Alicia M. Ritchie. Ritchie succeeded Valerie Naublock, the agency's longtime leader who retired last year after 40 years of leadership and service to the Finger Lakes region. Ritchie, who came to Ontario County after serving as first deputy executive director of the New Jersey Division of Travel and Tourism, is poised to be the next executive director of the Brandywine Valley in Chester County, Pennsylvania. According to Krista Gleason, chair of the board of directors of the Ontario County Chamber of Commerce, board members will meet this week to discuss appointing an interim leader who would start August 1st while a search is conducted for the next president and CEO. That search will start immediately, Gleason said. More about Tracy Dello Stritto. Dello Stritto led the development and implementation of the Chamber of Commerce's strategic and marketing plans, managed signature programs such as Leadership Ontario, and promoted local businesses through community partnerships, advocacy efforts, and other initiatives. In a prepared statement, Dello Stritto said that during the past several years, she had the privilege of championing the business community, and added she's honored to build on that work at the Finger Lakes Visitors Connection. Quote, as someone born and raised here, I know what makes this community such a special place to live, work, and play, Dello Stritto stated. With Ontario County experiencing remarkable growth and opportunity, I look forward to collaborating with our community and business partners to strengthen our visitor economy, support local businesses, and inspire even more people to experience everything our county has to offer. Prior to joining the Chamber, Dello Stritto served as Executive Director of the Partnership for Ontario County, now known as Ontario Cares. She also served as Executive Director for the Finger Lakes Wine Alliance, Communications and Club Manager at Herman J. Weimer Vineyard, and Direct-to-Consumer Manager at Red Jacket Orchards. Quote, her experience leading high-impact and community-focused initiatives will contribute to FLVC's mission of promoting Ontario County tourism and driving economic impact to our destination, unquote, Finger Lakes Visitor Connection Board Chair David Hutchings said in a statement. Gleason said in a statement that Dello Stritto has positioned the business organization at the forefront of economic development, workforce leadership development, and advocacy. Quote, it's no surprise to us that FLVC has seen this impact and offered her an opportunity to bring her leadership to the tourism industry, Gleason stated. FLVC is a longtime chamber partner and we look forward to working with Tracy in her new position. Our chamber board thanks Tracy for her indelible contributions and for being an absolute joy to work with, unquote. More about Alicia Ricci. Ricci is praised for her invaluable service and contributions, and under her leadership, the Visitors Connection experienced a chapter of growth and evolution, according to Charles Parkhurst, Finger Lakes Visitors Connection Board Representative Charles Parkhurst. Ricci led key advancements at Visit Finger Lakes, including a new data partnership with economic development to measure tourism's economic impact and a countywide digital asset management platform to strengthen destination marketing, Parkhurst said. How important is tourism to Ontario County? Traveler spending in Ontario County accounted for an economic impact of $341 million in 2023, according to data compiled as part of a tourism economics report released by I Love New York and Empire State Development. Such spending set a record in the county, and the growth was the second highest noted in the Finger Lakes region, officials with the Finger Lakes Visitors Connection said at the time. In 2023, tourism's economic impact was $4.382 billion in the 14-county Finger Lakes region. Ontario County's contribution makes up 8% of the total for the region, largest behind Rochester and Syracuse. The report noted that the tourism industry is responsible for 4,696 jobs in Ontario County, the largest outside of the metropolitan areas of Rochester and Syracuse. The number represents 9% of the region's employment base. Tourism in Ontario County generated $157 million in direct, indirect, and induced labor income. The reporter, Mike Murphy, covers Canandaigua and other communities in Ontario County and writes the Eat, Drink, and Be Murphy Food and Drink column. He can be reached at mmurphy@messengerpostmedia.com. Follow him on X at mpn-Mike Murphy. Man accused of setting fire inside Greece Walmart, forcing evacuation. By Victoria E. Friel, New York Connect Team USA Today Network. A man is facing felony charges after authorities say he intentionally set a fire inside a Walmart in Greece, forcing the store to be evacuated last week. Jamal L. Wright was charged with second-degree arson, first-degree reckless endangerment, and second-degree criminal mischief. According to Monroe County Jail records, Wright was arraigned and is being held at the Monroe County Jail on $40,000 cash bail or $80,000 bond. Firefighters responded around 11 a.m. Thursday, July 2nd, to the Walmart at 3800 Dewey Avenue after a fire was reported in the clothing department, according to Barnard Fire Rescue Chief Stephen Andrews. Store employees extinguished most of the fire before firefighters arrived. The blaze caused minimal smoke damage and did not damage the building. No injuries were reported, according to the Greece Police Department. Police apprehended Wright following the incident. Additional details about his arrest have not been released, and the investigation remains ongoing. Key Penfield Highway, site of pavement repairs through July 20th, by Ganesh Shields, Rochester Democrat Chronicle, USA Today Network. The New York State Department of Transportation has announced lane reductions this month on a key Penfield highway. To accommodate pavement repairs, there will be daytime closures along State Route 286, also known as Atlantic Avenue. Drivers may expect reductions between the intersection with State Route 250 near Fairport 9 Mile Point Road and the Wayne County line in Penfield. Reductions will take place from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The project is expected to be complete by July 20th. Drivers should anticipate travel delays during this time and are advised to follow posted detours and flaggers near work zones or seek alternate routes if necessary. Construction activities are weather dependent and subject to change based on conditions. Drivers are urged to slow down and drive responsibly in work zones. Fines are doubled for speeding in a work zone, and convictions of 2 or more speeding violations in a work zone could result in the suspension of an individual's driver's license. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Obituaries. Carol A. Crocker, Crocker, in Rochester. Arrangements are through the Anthony Funeral and Cremation Chapels. Pierre Dubé, D-U-B-E, aged 63, in Rochester, New York, passed on July 5th. Arrangements are with the Paul W. Harris Funeral Home, and the interment is in Irondequoit Cemetery. Richard Dick Mengel, M-E-N-G-E-L, in Pittsford. Arrangements are with the Anthony Funeral and Cremation Chapels. Asha Naomi Louise Stevens, S-T-E-P-H-E-N-S, in Rochester. Arrangements are through the Crawford Funeral Home. And Jean Ruth Wolcott, W-O-L-C-O-T-T, age 74, in New Hartford, New York, passed on June 22nd. Arrangements are through the Friedel, F-R-I-E-D-E-L, Williams and Edmunds Funeral and Cremation Services. Service time is July 15th at 5 p.m. The location is 3129 State Route 12B in Deansboro, New York. Delivery driver dies after rolling van pins him at Wayne County home. A New York Connect Team, USA Today Network. A delivery driver died Monday night after being pinned by his own van while making a package delivery at a home in Wayne County, according to New York State Police. The incident happened around 8:30 p.m. Monday, July 6th on Eads Road in Wolcott. State Police said the driver had parked a 2025 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van in a residential driveway and got out to retrieve packages from the cargo area. Investigators said the van then began rolling forward toward the house. Witnesses yelled to warn the driver, who tried to stop the moving vehicle before it struck the residence. Troopers said he lost his footing and became pinned between the van and a porch support, suffering severe head injuries. People at the scene moved the van off the driver and began rendering aid until emergency responders arrived. The driver was taken by ambulance to Upstate University Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. State Police did not immediately release the victim's name. The residents sustained minor damage. New York State Police continue to investigate what caused the van to roll. Driver killed in tractor-trailer crash identified, by Victoria E. Friel, New York Connect Team USA Today Network. Authorities have identified the driver killed last week in a tractor-trailer crash in Cayuga County in New York's Finger Lakes region. The fatal crash happened on State Route 34B in Scipio, just south of Fleming Scipio Town Line Road, shortly after 8:30 a.m. Thursday, July 2nd, according to Cayuga County Sheriff Brian Shenek. Investigators said a southbound Freightliner tractor-trailer carrying liquid manure traveled off the shoulder of the road and overturned after the driver attempted to return to the roadway. Scipio is located in Cayuga County between Cayuga Lake and Owasco Lake in the Finger Lakes region. Deputies on Tuesday, July 7th, identified the driver as Dwight J. Curtis, 46, of Lisle in Broome County. Curtis was the only person inside the tractor-trailer and was pronounced dead at the scene, according to Cayuga County Sheriff's Office. The Cayuga County Sheriff's Office continues to investigate the crash. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Sheriff's Office at 315-253-1222. Thousands lined Canandaigua's Main Street for 4th of July parade by Mike Murphy, Rochester Democrat Chronicle, USA Today Network. Mark and Jody Flick moved to Bristol Harbor over a year ago to be closer to their grandkids in Victor, and to share the holiday with family during a parade on the 4th of July makes it an extra special occasion to them. Quote, family is what it's all about as far as the 4th of July, Mark Flick said. We're celebrating our country and our family, unquote. This year's parade in Canandaigua was extra special as it coincided with the country's 250th anniversary celebration. Thousands of people came out to watch, many donned in red, white, and blue gear like the Flicks, who wore oversized Uncle Sam hats for the occasion. According to downtown Canandaigua Business Improvement District downtown manager and director Denise Chappelle, more than 75 community organizations participated in the parade and filled Canandaigua's Main Street with, quote, creativity, patriotism, music, history, and hometown pride, unquote. Spectator Mary Welch of Canandaigua did her part, wearing a red, white, and blue sun hat, sunglasses, and necklace. And no patriotic getup in these parts is complete without the red, white, and blue of the NFL Buffalo Bills, and Welch represented the team well with her festive Bills shirt. Welch was happy to see that so many people participated in Canandaigua's great parade, and she offered a special USA 250th message to all. Quote, let there be peace, unquote, Welch said. Here are the Canandaigua Parade Award winners. The Grand Marshal Award was Special Delivery, Granger Homestead and Carriage Museum. Canandaigua Mayor's Community Award, the Rotary Club of Canandaigua and Finger Lakes Community Band. Best Use of the 250 theme, Susan B. Anthony Trial, Town of Canandaigua Special Events. The Historic Patriotism Award, the Canandaigua Chapter, National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Canandaigua BID Award, the Unique Toy Shop, Outstanding Float, Family Promise of Ontario County, First Responders Award, Canandaigua Fire Department, Canandaigua Emergency Medical Services, EMS, Most Creative Entry, the World War II veteran Jean Gerard portraying George Washington, Town and City of Canandaigua Republican Committee. The top musical performance was Feedin' or Pipe Band. Patriotic Spirit Award went to Boy Scout Troop 32. The reporter, Mike Murphy, covers Canandaigua and other communities in Ontario County and writes the Eat, Drink, and Be Murphy Food and Drink column. He can be reached at mmurphy@messengerpostmedia.com. Follow him on X at mpn-Mike Murphy. Just a note to you listeners, that pretty much covers Rochester and local news. So I will read now from other articles that are available. It's a small paper today. Analysis. Leader's Huge Funeral Shows Iran's Defiance by Samia Nakhoul, Nakhoul, from Reuters, from Beirut. The funeral of late Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was more than a national farewell. The sea of mourners in Tehran sent a message to the United States and Israel that their attempt to break the Islamic Republic had failed. Rather than looking weakened by the war that began with U.S. and Israeli strikes on February 28th, Iran presented itself as defiant, unified, and determined to shape what comes next. That defiance and ability to survive now underpins Iran's negotiating strategy, regional officials, diplomats, and analysts say, depicting the funeral as the moment Tehran sought to transform endurance into leverage. Not, quote, a diamond for a lollipop, unquote. The war, they say, has underlined Iran's leverage over the Strait of Hormuz and enabled it to demand that any deal on its nuclear program begins with recognition that its control over the vital oil choke point is a reality that must be accepted. A 60-day ceasefire was intended by Washington to revive diplomacy on stopping Iran from developing a nuclear arsenal, but has instead opened a different contest, one in which Iran's location, rather than its uranium, is its most powerful asset, with Tehran seeking to convert wartime gains into permanent strategic advantage by securing acceptance of its dominant position around the strait. Although huge revenues might be earned from charging fees for vessels using the strait, Tehran sees Hormuz less as an economic asset than as a source of political legitimacy, said Alex Vatenka of the U.S.-based Middle East Institute. Quote, the symbolic part is more important for the Iranians than revenues, Vatenka said. They want some kind of symbolic acceptance that the strait is Iran's. It's about accepting Iran as a sovereign power over the strait, unquote. Citing a Persian saying, Vatenka added, quote, why give away a diamond for a lollipop, unquote. According to Tehran's calculation, Hormuz is the diamond. Sanctions relief and frozen assets are the lollipop. Quote unquote, divine blessing, Iran's leadership has echoed this position. Quote, the Strait of Hormuz is our greatest power tool. We must properly protect this divine blessing, unquote, said Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Qualibaf, adding that Iran would, quote, under no circumstances relinquish its rights, unquote, there. Iran is deliberately slowing negotiations to lock in what it sees as the war's dividends before returning to the nuclear question, regional sources and diplomats say. For Tehran, which denies seeking a nuclear bomb, uranium can wait, but consolidating its position on Hormuz cannot, said Alan Iyer, a former U.S. diplomat with expertise on Iran. Quote, Iran is perfectly happy to play for time and just drag negotiations out, Iyer said. It wants control of Hormuz and is holding talks to institutionalize that control, unquote. That could mean embedding its influence through transit arrangements, coordination mechanisms, or charges for services along the corridor that carries a fifth of global oil and liquefied natural gas supplies, while Gulf states wait to see whether Washington is able to reverse the new reality. Tehran believes President Donald Trump, constrained by domestic politics and wary of another confrontation before the midterm elections in November, is under more pressure to secure a deal than Iran is to make concessions. Quote, the Iranians know that President Trump wants to get out. He wants to move on, Iyer said. They know they can squeeze him because time is on their side, unquote. Aaron David Miller, a former U.S. Middle East negotiator, said Washington's military campaign had failed to break Iran's leverage, leaving U.S. diplomacy with a flawed ceasefire, the implementation of which has become a battleground in its own right. Tehran, he said, has little reason to engage seriously on its nuclear program until it's confident the new reality around Hormuz has been accepted and meaningful progress made on unlocking billions of dollars in frozen assets held abroad. Quote, the 60-day clock was always a fantasy, Miller said. The Iranians are not going to move to the nuclear file until they're relatively confident they've achieved this new status quo. They want to make sure that Trump understands and that the world understands that there's no going back to February 27th, unquote. Iran won't give up Hormuz. Iran is exploiting what Miller calls the key reality of the post-war order. Neither U.S. military power nor the threat of a U.S. naval blockade fundamentally altered its position on the Strait of Hormuz. Quote, they're not going to give it up, unquote, he said. Abdeslam Al-Khatbi, president of the Emiratis Policy Center, said that by halting the war without resolving the issues that caused it, Washington may have helped elevate Hormuz from being a pressure point into a lasting source of leverage for Tehran. Gulf officials worry that by showing Iran's ability to shape events around the strait, the war created an advantage that Tehran will be reluctant to surrender even in exchange for sanctions relief or progress on the nuclear file. Quote, they're twisting the arms of the Americans and everybody, unquote, Al-Khatbi said. Quote, now that they have found this Hormuz treasure, they will not leave it, unquote. Washington is likely to have to accept the reopening of the strait under conditions largely dictated by Tehran, analysts say. Quote, no one's going to win, but Iran will lose less than the United States will, unquote, Ayer said. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Judge blocks subpoena on Georgia election workers by Aisha Bagchi, USA Today. In a blow to President Donald Trump's efforts to investigate the 2020 presidential election, a federal judge quashed a grand jury subpoena July 7th seeking information on 2020 election workers from Fulton County, Georgia, which includes most of Atlanta. Quote, the breadth of the grand jury subpoena is staggering, unquote, targeting personal identifying information for, quote, thousands of employees and volunteers, unquote, wrote Judge William M. Ray II, who was appointed by Trump to the federal bench in 2018. A series of audits, recounts, and court cases have failed to produce evidence that would support Trump's assertions that Joe Biden beat him through widespread fraud, but Trump has continued to promote his unsubstantiated claims. The subpoena sought names, residential and email addresses, and personal phone numbers for an array of 2020 workers and volunteers. The investigation appears to be part of a wider effort by the Justice Department under Trump to relitigate the 2020 election. In January, the FBI seized 2020 ballots and other election records from Fulton County. A different Trump appointee, Judge J.P. Booley, ruled in May that the Bureau may keep those seized records. According to an internal memo obtained by the Associated Press, the FBI has been instructed to send 260 investigative analysts and staff operations specialists into its investigation of the 2020 election in Fulton County. Those staffers have been told to check an estimated 708 records by July 17th. Ray suggested the subpoena was really about trying to substantiate Trump's debunked theories about the 2020 election. Any fraud that might be turned up in an investigation, he wrote, couldn't be prosecuted because the statute of limitations, the legal deadline to bring a criminal case, has expired. Justice Department spokesperson Kirsten Pels characterized those statements as probabilistic. Quote, the district court's ruling that the probable expiration of statutes of limitations prevents the grand jury from investigating the 2020 election in Georgia is at odds with numerous holdings of the Supreme Court, unquote, the spokesperson said in a statement. Quote, because the court's order jeopardizes both the historic purview of the grand jury and a long-delayed assessment of 2020 election processes, the department is considering all options to challenge, unquote, the ruling, the spokesperson added. FCC accused of, quote-unquote, chilling speech in ABC filing by Brianna J. Frank, USA Today. ABC accused the Federal Communications Commission of quote, chilling speech ahead of the fast-approaching 2026 general election, unquote, in a July 6 legal filing submitted as part of an ongoing proceeding related to equal time rules. The FCC initiated a quote-unquote enforcement action against the Disney-owned ABC in February after Texas State Representative James Tallarico appeared on The View while running in the state's Democratic Senate primary. FCC Chair Brendan Carr has characterized the matter as a procedural issue, saying ABC hadn't submitted the proper paperwork declaring an appearance by a political candidate that would open the window for an opposing candidate to request, quote, comparable time and placement, unquote. Commissioner Ana Gomez, a former President Joe Biden appointee, however, has accused the FCC of engaging in partisan politics to support President Donald Trump's objectives. The FCC began accepting public input as to whether The View should be exempt from the requirement to offer equal broadcast opportunities to political candidates in May. More than 50,000 comments had been filed by late June, when ABC launched an on-air campaign to encourage public participation in the matter. ABC has maintained that the exemption the FCC granted The View in 2002 should remain in place, saying in its July 6th filing that the program, quote, has not materially changed, unquote, since then. The filing said the quote, unquote, overwhelming majority of public comments supported ABC, but also responded to counterpoints raised by commentators who opposed an exemption for the show. To those who criticized The View for being what they described as quote unquote opinion driven, for example, the network said denying an exemption based on perspective would be an unconstitutional quote, prototypical content or viewpoint based restriction, unquote. As for some commentators' concerns about the ratio of right leaning to left leaning guests, ABC said the notion of establishing a quote, government approved ideological quota, unquote, in the name of balance would be, quote, not a regulatory standard but a surveillance regime, unquote. The filing also accused the FCC of targeting, quote, daytime and late night television programs perceived as unfriendly to the current administration, while leaving untouched the vast landscape of talk radio where candidates routinely appear without their opponents, unquote. In a separate matter, the FCC in April ordered ABC to file license renewals for its 8 television stations by late May. The order said the commission was investigating the stations, quote, for possible violations of the Communications Act of 1934 and the FCC's rules, including the agency's prohibition on unlawful discrimination, unquote. Disney said in response that it was, quote unquote, confident its, quote, record demonstrates our continued qualifications as licensees under the Communications Act and the First Amendment and are prepared to show that through the appropriate legal channels, unquote. USA Today's coverage of First Amendment issues is funded through a collaboration between the Freedom Forum and journalism funding partners. Funders do not provide editorial input. ICE officer fatally shoots immigrant in Houston, by Michael Loria, USA Today. Federal immigration enforcement officers shot and killed a Mexican immigrant in Houston on July 7th, according to Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials. Lorenzo Salgado Aruja, UJO, was fatally shot by ICE officers after they attempted to pull him over in a, quote, targeted enforcement operation, unquote, in the Texas city's East End neighborhood shortly before 7 a.m. local time, according to an agency spokesperson. ICE officials allege Salgado Arujo, quote, attempted to evade arrest and weaponized his vehicle in an attempt to run over, unquote, an officer. The individual fired, quote, his weapon in self-defense, unquote, the spokesperson said. Salgado Arujo was transported to a hospital where he died. USA Today has reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for more information on what prompted ICE officers to pursue Salgado Arujo. The League of United Latin American Citizens, a prominent Latino civil rights group, said they had been in contact with Salgado Arujo's son, Ronaldo. According to families, Salgado Arujo was killed as he was starting his workday. 2 workers who were with him were detained during the incident, said LULAC, citing family. The group said they are offering a $5,000 reward for information that leads either to the indictment or exoneration of the officer behind the shooting. Salgado Arujo's family said the man was in the process of becoming a U.S. citizen. U.S. Today has also reached out to DHS for comment on the man's immigration status. Leaders at LULAC slammed ICE's explanation of the shooting. Quote, we've heard this excuse one too many times, unquote, said Domingo Garcia, a former LULAC president, referring to accusations that Salgado Arujo attempted to, quote, unquote, weaponize his vehicle and ram officers. Immigration authorities used similar terms to describe the fatal shootings of Silverio Villegas, Gonzalez, a Mexican man killed outside Chicago in September, and Renee Good, a U.S. citizen killed in Minneapolis in January. Quote, he was shot, he was unarmed, and yet the same excuse that we've heard time and time again, that he weaponized his van, Garcia said. Yet when we look at the pictures, there is no damage, unquote. LULAC shared photos from the scene of Salgado Araujo's vehicle. The photos of the front and driver's side of a white van show no dents or scratches. USA Today has not independently verified the images. Garcia called for a full investigation into the shooting, like the inquiries underway in Minnesota into the shootings of Good and Alex Preddy, a U.S. citizen, fatally shot by immigration authorities in January. Mary Benton, a spokesperson for Houston Mayor John Whitmire, said Houston police were not involved and referred questions to Homeland Security. ICE said Homeland Security's Inspector General will be investigating the shooting, and FBI officials in Houston will be investigating a, quote, potential assault on a federal law enforcement officer, unquote. Satirist says officials kept her out of Vance event. Cats on a Couch creator sues administration, by Brianna J. Frank, USA Today. A woman behind social media accounts satirizing Vice President J.D. Vance has filed a First Amendment lawsuit against President Donald Trump's administration, alleging officials excluded her from one of Vance's taxpayer-funded events in Maine because of her online content. Amanda McGonigal created social media accounts under the username Cats on a Couch after an interview in which Vance criticized childless cat ladies resurfaced ahead of the 2024 presidential election. The complaint, filed in U.S. District Court for the District of Maine, asks the court to declare that excluding McGonigal constituted viewpoint-based discrimination and retaliation in violation of the First Amendment. It seeks to bar officials from engaging in such actions. The suit centers on May 14th event in Bangor, Maine, in which the Vice President spoke about the administration's efforts to combat fraud. McGonigal registered for the event in early May and, quote, planned to participate as an audience member to express her disapproval, unquote, of Vance, according to the complaint. The lawsuit cited the ways McGonigal planned to protest, including, quote, staying silent or booing while others clapped and cheered, smiling, frowning, crossing her arms, or wearing clothing with political messages, unquote. She received official confirmation, according to the complaint, and, quote, complied with all guest guidance, unquote, from the President's executive office, including a prohibition on bags and purses, as well as signs and placards. Quote, however, when Ms. McGonigal was standing in line, armed Secret Service officers singled her out by name and excluded her from the event, telling her that, quote, we know where you stand, unquote, the complaint said. McGonigal responded by saying, quote, it is a cat account, this is silly, unquote, at which point officials said the event was private, according to the complaint, and both she and her friend were excluded. The alleged statement, quote, reflects a practice of falsely claiming that official vice presidential events are private political events where those who hold opposing viewpoints may be excluded, unquote, according to the lawsuit. McGonigal was also kept out of a May 5th Vance event in Des Moines, Iowa, according to the lawsuit. The U.S. Secret Service told USA Today it does not comment, quote, on pending or proposed litigation, unquote. Neither the White House nor Vance's office returned requests for comment. The American Civil Liberties Union, which has taken on numerous First Amendment cases against the Trump administration, is representing McGonigal. In an interview, Anita Satui, a staff attorney at the ACLU of Maine, described the Trump administration as being, quote, really thin-skinned and completely unable to handle a joke, unquote. She placed McGonigal's complaint in the context of the administration's criticism of late-night host Jimmy Kimmel and actions against other content creators, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers arresting comedian Robbie Roadsteamer in a giraffe costume during a demonstration. McGonigal called the matter, quote-unquote, absurd in an ACLU news release, saying the, quote, government can't exclude me from official vice presidential events just because I mock people in power on the internet, unquote. The Trump administration has routinely retaliated against people exercising their First Amendment rights, McGonigal said. But the First Amendment protects our right to criticize the government, and it's well within my rights to say that I think J.D. Vance is an unlikable idiot, unquote. USA Today's coverage of First Amendment issues is funded through a collaboration between the Freedom Forum and journalism funding partners. Funders do not provide editorial input. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Rover takes closer look at organic carbon on Mars by Will Dunham from Reuters in Washington. Using NASA's Perseverance rover, Perseverance rover, scientists are getting a greater understanding of the nature of some of the organic carbon, the molecular backbone for all known living organisms, detected on Mars as they explore the question of whether Earth's planetary neighbor ever harbored life. New research describes the structure of the organic carbon found last year by the rover in sedimentary rock that contained a potential biosignature, a possible sign of past microbial life. This mudstone formed perhaps between 3.2 billion and 3.8 billion years ago beneath a now vanished body of water in Jezero crater in the Martian northern hemisphere. Organic carbon can be a clue as to whether Mars ever harbored life because it serves as the chemical underpinning for the molecules that build DNA, cells, and proteins. But its presence is not proof of life because it also can arise in non-biological processes such as chemical interaction between rock and water. The detection of organic carbon in two rocks in Jezero crater, given the names Shaeva Falls and Walhalla Glades, was disclosed last year when the researchers announced the discovery of a potential biosignature in one of them. The two rocks were sampled by the rover at locations around 330 feet apart, according to planetary scientist Ashley Murphy of the Planetary Science Institute in Arizona, co-leader of the new research published in the journal Science Advances. Following last year's discovery, NASA released an image of the Shaeva Falls rock showing very fine-grained and rusty red-colored mudstone bearing ring-shaped features resembling leopard spots, as well as dark marks resembling poppy seeds. Such features on Earth can be associated with microbial activity. A potential biosignature is defined as a substance or structure that may have a biological origin but needs more data or further study before conclusion can be made about the absence or presence of life. Using Perseverance's Sherlock, capital SHERLOC, instrument, the researchers in the new study took a closer look at the complex carbon called macromolecular carbon present in the two rocks. They said this carbon bears similarities to carbon formed either through biotic or abiotic processes on Earth, and to carbon formed through abiotic processes found in meteorites. This marks the first instance of macromolecular carbon being discovered in mudstones in Jezero crater, where Perseverance landed in 2021. NASA's other rover operating on Mars, called Curiosity, previously found macromolecular carbon at another site called Gale Crater, located about 2,300 miles away. Quote, these findings indicate that the habitability of Mars and the availability of organic materials may have been widespread across the planet billions of years ago, unquote, said planetary scientist Kyle Uckert of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California and a co-leader of the study. Quote, this strengthens evidence that ancient Mars had chemical ingredients and environmental conditions that could have supported life, but does not provide proof of life, nor does it push the needle any further toward biotic or abiotic origins, unquote, Uckert said. The rover's instruments do not have the capability to determine whether this carbon arose through biological processes. Quote, we need the return of these samples to Earth for more rigorous testing with higher sensitivity and higher resolution laboratory instruments, unquote, Uckert said. Now cold and desolate, Mars, during perhaps the first third of its existence, possessed a thicker atmosphere and warmer climate, allowing for liquid water on its surface. Like Earth and the solar system's other planets, Mars formed roughly 4.5 billion years ago. Quote, the only place in the universe where we know life has emerged is Earth, Uckert said. If life is discovered on Mars, it could indicate that the emergence of life is not restricted to Earth, assuming the right conditions and ingredients are available, which would be a profound discovery, unquote. Another legislator absent on House votes by James Call, Tallahassee Democrat, USA Today Network. There's another congressman missing in action. U.S. Representative Neil Dunn, Republican of Florida, has not cast a vote in the House of Representatives since mid-June. Between June 11th and June 30th, when Congress broke for its 4th of July holiday, Dunn missed 11 consecutive roll call votes on issues ranging from small business policy and consumer protection to defense legislation and congressional oversight, the New Republic reported. The North Florida lawmaker, whose attendance ranks among the worst in the House, has missed 246 of 4,992 votes since taking office in 2017, a 4.9% absentee rate that is more than double the 2.1% median for current members of Congress, according to the nonpartisan website govtrack.us. Dunn announced in January that he would not seek re-election this year. President Donald Trump later told a White House gathering that Dunn had, quote-unquote, terminal heart issues and had undergone emergency surgery at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Trump then added, quote, he would be dead by June, unquote, without proper care, to which House Speaker Mike Johnson replied, quote, okay, that wasn't public, unquote. Dunn is the second congressman sidelined by health concerns this year as the GOP navigates a narrow House majority. Representative Tom Kean Jr., Republican of New Jersey, who leads the pack and missed votes, returned to Congress in late June after an unexplained nearly 4-month absence. Upon his return, he revealed he was hospitalized and treated for depression. Republicans currently hold one of the smallest House majorities in nearly a century. Analysis. World absorbs historic wartime oil disruptions by Dmitry Zandikov, Robert Harvey, and Ahmed Ghader from Reuters in London. The world has absorbed with surprising ease the loss of over 1 billion barrels of oil supply since the Iran war began, but with long-term peace elusive and buffer reserves now drained, it still faces the looming risk of future price spikes. Tehran's throttling of the Strait of Hormuz in response to the U.S. and Israeli attacks launched on February 28th fed fears of a catastrophic global energy crunch. The ensuing 4-month conflict did indeed create the biggest energy disruption in history, according to the International Energy Agency. At its worst, the headline supply loss was 14 million barrels per day. But worries that Asia and Europe would run out of gasoline, diesel, or jet fuel never materialized. After peaking around $126 per barrel in April, still some $20 below the 2008 record, benchmark Brent oil prices are now lower than they were when the conflict began. Quote, this suggests traders view the disruption as serious but manageable, reflecting confidence in today's more resilient energy and economic systems, unquote, said John Baffes, senior economist at the World Bank. Since the oil crisis of the 1970s, World Bank data shows that oil intensity, a measure of the role oil plays in economic activity, has fallen by more than half in most advanced economies and roughly 20% in emerging and developing countries. Beyond that structural shift, however, three specific factors have been responsible for forestalling the worst-case scenario during the Gulf crisis. Saudi Arabia and the UAE found alternative routes to export. Asia, led by China, curtailed buying. And countries around the world likely pulled around 1 billion barrels of oil from their reserves, including via an IEA-led record stocks release. When the war broke out, China had nearly 1.4 billion barrels of oil stored, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. That was more than the 1.2 billion barrels held by all of the 32 members of the IEA combined, including the United States' 413 million barrels. China's rapid electric vehicle adoption in recent years, along with flexibility in oil and petrochemicals output, has also helped, said Ilya Boushov, Bouchouev, of the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies. Quote, they're managing the market a lot better than the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries used to, unquote, said Bouchouev, a former head of derivatives trading at KOCH Global Partners. The adjustments by China, the world's biggest oil importer, helped ease global demand pressure, and the IEA's scheme to release 400 million barrels of reserves provided further breathing room at a time when President Donald Trump was repeatedly stating an end to the war was imminent. Quote, traders always took the view that this can't go on much longer, unquote, said Neil Atkinson, a former IEA official. Washington's narrative management that more supply was coming also made hedge funds reluctant to hold long positions that bet on prices rising. Societe Generale analysis noted, with the signing in June of a preliminary agreement to end the war, there has been a rapid swing back toward business as usual. Quote, the market seems to have decided that this peace deal is for real, unquote, Atkinson said. In reality, however, little is as it was before the war. Even as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Iraq, and Bahrain resume production and exports, it'll be years in some cases before they fully repair the damage to their energy infrastructure caused by Iranian attacks. While prices may reflect expectations of a rapid return to pre-war supply levels, data on tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz tells a different, more pessimistic story. And with the clock ticking on the 60-day ceasefire, which now, as you know, is probably done, progress toward a final agreement to end the war has been achingly slow, with key questions, including the fate of Iran's nuclear program, still unresolved. And I need to stop there. It's a pretty long article. But I just want to remind you, you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Thursday, July 9th issue of the Democrat Chronicle. Your reader has been Betsy Waugh. Thank you for listening.